On this episode of That's What G Said podcast, we talk to Keeneland Dan Cronin, and we discuss college basketball. His brother's the head coach over at UCLA, so we talk UCLA, we talk some Pac-12, and then we talk overall, who do we like teams, some of the top teams who are contenders, who are pretenders, and then we discuss a couple of the stakes races on Friday night over at Turfway, because Dan heads over to Turfway quite a bit, and he plays those races. So a couple of the nice stakes races on Friday night, and then we discuss the Friday night races from Sam Houston after the interview with Dan. Talk a little Sam Houston, go through the Sam Houston card, give you some early and late plays, and then info all throughout the card. Don't forget, this episode is brought to you by Sarah Candle Company. Visit sarahcandles.com, C-E-R-A candles.com. Use the promo code GINO for 10% off of your purchase. They still have that Valentine's Day box going on for $20. You get to pick 2 scents. Fresh Roses, Tuxedo, Date Night. You pick 2 of those, and they come in the box. It's affordable. It's a perfect gift for significant other, friend, family member. These are all natural soy wax candles. They're free from toxins. Really, really good stuff. I have a Sarah Candle Sunday brunch burning right now as I look up. So check out Sarah Candle Company. So you want your daily dose of sports and pop culture? Well, I know a guy named G who can fix you good. That's what G said. From Game of Thrones and Stranger Things to DDTs and chicken wings and banking on a long shot to close. Will the Lakers bounce back? Did USC upset them? Will the Dodgers have on all who oppose? It's gotta be our year. It's gotta be our year. It's gotta be our fucking year. That's what G said. February 13th, 2020. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of That's What G Said podcast. If you're listening, do me a big favor if you can. Just click subscribe, if you can, over on YouTube, SoundCloud, iTunes, Google, Pods, TuneIn, wherever you're listening to. We're trying to get those YouTube subscriptions up too. We're going to start posting some videos and doing maybe some, just kind of quick hit videos sometimes if we don't have to, or don't want to do a full podcast, or maybe we can do some guests sometimes on video too, and some back and forth. So I'm going to just try some new things, mess around a little bit. Got to give a shout out also. Yesterday, Milo, 3 months old. My son already is 3 months old. Wow. It's flying. He is rolling around now, and he's really starting to push himself up. He does the back bridges and scoots all the way up, and he can start. He's starting to get his voice now. He's screaming and he's yelling and he is cooing and he is trying to speak, and it's just. Every day he's just learning more of his abilities, and just it's crazy. So having a blast there, and you see me posting pictures all over social media, so check them out. We had them all. We always like to. It's fun. We got spoiled with by a lot of family and friends. So we have a lot of cool outfits and stuff to dress him. So Stephanie does a good job of making him look pretty stylish a lot of the time. So, yeah, I'm one of the parents now that's just overwhelming with the social media pictures of their child. So it used to be the dogs. Now you get the son and the dogs. So, okay, let's get into the interview for today. We talk with Dan Cronin, and so right after this little commercial break, we're going to talk with Dan Cronin. Hopefully you enjoyed this interview. One of the sponsors of That's What G Said podcast is Cindy Carava, full-service realtor, and I am here over in Glendora at Coldwell Banker with Cindy Carava. Cindy, how was 2019 for you? Tell us a little bit about what kind of stuff you were working on.
Hi, Gino. Thanks for having me. 2019 was just really great. I had a great year selling homes all the way from Altadena, Arcadia, Monrovia, out to Upland and Ontario just recently. The market has been really good. We're looking forward to 2020 with an increase in home prices about 5.8% this year, opposed to last year where it was a little softer. We saw more like homes averaging about 3.5% in increase in value. It's also looking great for buyers. The interest rates right now are going to be staying under 4%. So if you've been on the fence about thinking about buying a home, now is the time to do so with interest rates still staying low.
And you offer more services than just the buying, selling, and leasing homes. Tell us about some of the other services that you offer and what a full-service realtor really is.
So you're right, Gino. Besides me being a full-service realtor of finding properties for my clients to buy or selling their homes or finding rentals for them, I also have a plethora of resources like handyman, contractors, electricians, plumbers. Like I said, if you're thinking about getting a home loan, I actually work with 2 great lenders that I can recommend to anybody.
And you're all over the internet, social media, websites. Let us know some of the places where we can find you. I know I've seen some reviews on Yelp and on Zillow. Everyone always has positive things to say. Everybody hears me raving about you all the time. But where can everyone else find out information about you or contact?
Thank you, Gino. Yeah, I am on Facebook and Instagram and LinkedIn. You can contact me on my website, which is www.cindycarava.com, or my email, which is cindyc.realtor@gmail.com, or feel free to call or text me on my cell phone, which is 626-394-6400.
Cindy is awesome. She's one of the kindest and most genuine people I've ever met. I promise you, you will enjoy every minute you interact with her. So thank you very much, Cindy. Appreciate all of your support from That's What G Said podcast.
Thank you, Gino. Have a great day, everyone.
Okay, our next guest, you know him as Keeneland Dan. You know him as Fat Bald Guy Racing. But I do have to say, as we welcome in Dan Cronin, I've been looking at some of the pictures of you online. You're going to have to be skinny bald guy racing pretty soon, or cut up bald guy racing. You look like you're in good shape, buddy. How's it going?
Oh, it's been a long couple of years since the heart issues, but I'm slowly getting to where I can actually do things. And I don't look completely horrible anymore. It was funny when I was introduced to a couple guys at UCLA, and a guy says, you look like a nose guard, not a point guard. And I was like, yeah, trust me, I get it. I went from 140 to 240. That now I'm back to 209 and trying to get into the 190s, but at least my heart doctor's happy with getting under 200. So if I can get there, I'll be happy.
So one thing that we love to talk about is horse racing. You're a big horse racing guy, but you are, in particular, really, really knowledgeable about basketball and about college basketball. You have a really good connection in that your brother has been a head coach now for many years, and he made the transition. Let's talk a little bit about how hard that has kind of been for you and for your family, because Cincinnati, that was the dream job forever. Like that's you guys who you've wanted that forever. And he got there and he did an unbelievable job succeeding with them, getting them to the tournament year in and year out. But then there's a job like UCLA that comes calling out here in California with the opportunity to recruit in a different place. And it was like an opportunity that I don't think you could pass up.
Yeah, I know a lot of people here didn't think he'd ever leave, but I knew there was a chance when UC played at UCLA just a couple years ago, and we all made the trip out there, and Mick and I were walking through Poly before the game, and he was looking around like in awe, and he was like, man, wouldn't it be crazy to coach at a place like this? And I was like, yeah, you think you'll never leave, but somebody like this ever calls, you better take it. Or I'll be mad at you. So when they did call, he called me and said, well, if we can figure things out with his daughter and the ex-wife, he's like, I think, I'm going to be able to take this job. And And of course, the ex-wife jumped at the chance to move to LA so now they got the co-parenting going on, living 20 minutes away from each other in LA with Sammy, who's now 13, and it all worked out great. So, mom wanted to move out there and Mick wanted to obviously take the challenge. So I think it was a little bit more of a challenge than he thought once we got to practicing. But, it is what it is at UCLA. I mean, you should be able to recruit good, solid players, smart players, guys that, not the guys that can't get in anywhere else. You know what I mean? You're going to be able to get good human beings that are good players. And so far, recruiting started slow, but then when the Knicks kid signed, it's really started to snowball from there. And, now he's got 3 kids and probably a handful more here before April hits. So that would be good.
And with the way that when any coach that comes into a new program, it's going to take a little while trying to, to implement their new system. And in particular with someone like your brother, because he is a really hard-nosed kind of old-school basketball coach. And if you are not playing defense, you are not going to play, period. And I think that was something that it takes a little while just to kind of get everyone to buy in a little bit. You have to win some games. And it felt like, I don't know if it was the Washington game maybe, but it felt like there was 1 or 2 games after they struggled where it almost felt like the light bulb went on for a lot of guys on the team and they started figuring it out like, oh, okay, if I give a little bit extra effort, I'm going to get on the court, I'm going to get some open shots, the offense will work towards me a little bit, and it seems like this team is really starting to figure things out.
Yeah, I think they made a gigantic move right around Christmas when they stopped playing the 2 big guys together, Riley and Hill, and started alternating them at the 5 spot and moved Chris Smith, who's a natural small forward, to 2020 power forward like everybody else is doing, and it ever since then, Chris Smith has just flourished because he can now get those matchups one-on-one against bigger, slower guys instead of the smaller, quicker guys. And now he can get to where he needs to get to on the floor to score. And the other thing is he's getting a ton of offensive rebounds because he's closer to the rim as a power forward than he was standing at the 3-point line as a small forward. And that, I think it's changed the whole team. Getting an extra guard on the floor has stopped all the turnovers.
The spacing.
Except when we played Oregon and our point guard got hurt in the first few minutes, and then we threw the ball all over the place. But every game that Tiger Campbell has played in now, the last 10 to 12 games, the turnovers have just been, normal. Nothing, 20s, 30s, nothing crazy like it was earlier in the year. And that's what Mick always preaches. You got to play defense and you got to take care of the ball. And if you do that, you can be in every game against anybody. It's just a matter of, can you make some shots, and then hopefully nobody goes crazy against you from the 3-point line. And, that's what it's been. And I really like the setup of the team for next year because, everybody's back except for Ali and Olinsky. And then you add, 2 guys and probably a few more. And everybody now has a role. They're all established. All the younger guys now got 30 games under their belt and know what the heck's expected. So those newer guys, it's easy to plug in a guy or 2. It's hard to teach 13 guys what you want to do. And frankly, what's funny is everybody talks about his defense. He hasn't even put in his real defense yet because he tried to do it in the preseason. He plays matchup zone a lot, and he couldn't do it because so many guys were lost on defense just playing man that when they tried to put in the matchup, he said it was like, having a bunch of first graders staring at you like, teacher, what on earth are you talking about?
What?
So they just scrapped it and said, the heck with it. We're just going to play man for the entire season until you guys understand what we want, and then we'll slowly try to get the matchup in over the course of the next year. So, yeah.
And what's hard is that, nowadays you were talking about, just the spacing and how that works a little bit better. And these players that are coming up and they're playing in AAU together and they're playing all these tournaments and everybody just wants to score and everybody wants to shoot threes, and you're coming up and you feel like a lot of the young kids or you get into college and you've been really good most places that you played forever. And sometimes you just lack the fundamentals. It's just the real simple things that you got to kind of reinstill in everyone. And what I like about what's been happening now, it's tough to do that sometimes when you try to do that and you're losing. But what's been nice about recently is now Mick is able to say, hey, look, everything we're doing, and this is just one small version of it. We can take this and go, way deeper into it. Now we're 5-2 in our last 7 games, and we have a couple big wins. We have some road wins. They beat Colorado and Arizona, who are right there as 2 of the best, most talented teams in the Pac-12. It's nice when you're trying to instill something new, and then you're able to point to some games and say, hey, see, look, we can beat anyone when we play good defense.
Yeah, when they put that stat up on the screen last game, I was laughing. UCLA's 13-0 when they hold teams to 74 points or under. I mean, that's a crazy stat, and it'll
and
even
that's not even like 50. You know what I mean? Like that's like a decent, just decent defense, just at least the effort.
Yeah, that's not even Virginia stuff. You just got 74 should not be that hard to do. But in the 11 losses, everybody scored over 74. They either got hot or we let down, or we still got guys learning. And when you got young guys and you're playing those back-to-backs, I mean, this is a strange conference how they do that. I'm not used to that. It's always Thursday, Sunday, or Thursday, Saturday, and you get them 2-game road trips, and it's hard for teams to win back-to-back. They just can't do it because they're not. And then the team that loses on Thursday is always desperate and hungry on Saturday. So the scores don't make sense a lot of times. And, he just keeps telling them, the offense is going to come and go. But as long as you guard, defend, try hard, dive on the floor, we're always going to be able to be in these games. And I think, like you said, when they hung up the at Washington win, I think that gave them some confidence. And then, you go to Oregon State and win, and then you go to Arizona and win. I mean, those are good wins. And I don't think people around the country even understand how good those wins are for a young team, and that's just going to build confidence for the rest of the year. And I mean, I'm not silly about it. I don't think they have any chance to make the tournament unless they'd run off 7 in a row, but it's not unthinkable. I mean, when you look at the schedule, every single game is none of them. You're not going to be a bigger underdog in any game this year than you were at Arizona.
Yep. Or at Oregon. Yeah, you don't have any of those unwinnable or games that you're like, at Oregon's probably going to be a really tough one. That's a tough place to play. You have the Washingtons coming up at home. You have across town at USC. You never know which USC team you're going to see. You get the Arizonas at home, and you just beat Arizona on the road. And then you have to go to Utah and Colorado. They're tough. That's going to be a tough road trip, but those are not unwinnable games.
Exactly.
And what's fun about this conference too, Dan, is that how crazy is this tournament going to be? Like the Pac-12 tournament going to be, come the end of the year when all these teams have showed that they can beat each other up. I mean, it's really going to come down to who's healthy, who's got the right matchup. Nothing would shock me in this conference seeing anyone beat anyone in any one matchup.
No, I agree with you, and you hit it on the head. I know you follow Southern Cal more than I do, but I've seen them play 4 or 5 times now. And I don't know who's going to show up from game to game.
Oh, my gosh. I know.
I mean, Southern Cal played so well against UCLA. I was stunned.
Best game of the year.
I mean, they made every shot. The little point guard looked like an All-American, averaging, 5 points a game or something, comes out, bang, 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 bang. I'm like, what on earth is going on? But that's what happens in this conference. Southern Cal, I mean, they'll beat some teams, and you're like, wow, that's a great win, and then they'll lose by 30 to a team, and you're going,
scratching your head.
What happened? What's going on?
And Washington was supposed to be so good at the beginning of the year, and they've struggled. You've seen, teams being able to go and win on the road.
Stanford started out incredible, and they're good, but they have to make shots.
Yep.
They're one of them teams that if they don't make shots, they can't win. And Utah goes and beats Kentucky. I saw the game out in Vegas. I walked out of that arena like, I cannot believe Utah just beat Kentucky. And then they come to UCLA, and I'm watching them miss open shot after open shot after open shot. I'm going, this doesn't even look like the same team, but they're young. And when you're young, you're going to have all those ups and downs. But if Utah comes to Vegas and makes 14 threes, they can beat anybody.
Well, it's been such a weird year in that
Michigan State was the preseason number 1. They're not even ranked anymore. They dropped out of the top 25. I think this is the first time since like 2013, 2014 where the preseason number 1 isn't even ranked in the top 25 anymore. Just kind of shows you the parity. It does feel like towards the top, we're starting to get some of those top tier teams to kind of show themselves a little bit now. So like, let's go through some of these top tier teams. So right off the bat, with Baylor, we have Baylor and Kansas in that Big 12. Of those two teams, pretenders, contenders, what do you think about some of them as top tier teams?
I really like Baylor's team, but what scares me is they play so much 2-3 zone that in the tournament, you run into one team that gets hot.
Mm-hmm.
It's happened to Syracuse so many years. When you sit in those zones, I'd like to see him play more man, but if you never know, they may play man some more. But, if they sit in a 2-3 zone and somebody comes out and gets hot, they could get upset. But I really like their team. I love Teague. He's from Cincinnati area here, and he's been in college, it seems like, for 7 years. He's been around so long, but, he is an older player that can get points. And they got other guys that are good, too. And then, Kansas, they're Kansas. They're always going to get a good seed, and they've always got a chance to make a run. And when you got a good, solid point guard like they do and a big guy, we used to always joke about this, but I really believe this is true at any level of basketball, except maybe the NBA because it's turned a little bit different. But if you got a great point guard and a good, solid big man, you can have all the 2s, 3s, and 4s you want. Give me the point guard in the center,
yep,
and I'll play you, and I think I'll beat you. Because the wings, there's a lot of good wings around that as long as you teach them how to play, you can win with them. But you can't just teach a point guard. You either got one or you don't.
It's like a quarterback,
Yeah.
It is. It's like, especially in college, because I'm telling you, as you mentioned, that's been one of the big problems with USC this year is just the inconsistency from the guard play. Some weeks it's like they can't even get the ball into the big man. They just can't even make the correct pass in, or just handle the ball a little bit, turnover. When you have that point guard who is just not going to make mistakes, that makes building a team around and how you approach the game so much easier.
Right, yeah, there's no question. That you're right. That's Southern Cal's struggle all year is what point guard's going to show up, and frankly, that's what's going on with Louisville.
Mm-hmm.
Louisville, if they had a top-notch point guard, they might be undefeated because they've got everything else to win the whole thing. I'm just not sure. Johnson's come on lately, but I'm just not sure they've got good enough 1 and 2 spots to win the whole thing. Those other guys are going to have to really play well, where Gonzaga's got everything. But Gonzaga's always got that gaudy record, and we always wonder, how good are they really? Because I look at the Washington game, went to the buzzer. I watched the Oregon game, went to the buzzer. So how much better are they than Oregon and Washington? And if they're not that much better than them, then
they're beatable. And they're very beatable.
Yeah. Are they really number 1, 2? If they played in the Pac-12, if they played in the Big 12, they'd have 4 or 5 losses. Now that doesn't mean they'd have 10 because they are really good. But I never know if that'll catch up with them in the tournament because they're not the underdog anymore. Now they're the target.
Well, and San Diego State too, right? This year, that's what's going to be interesting is that we have kind of 2 teams who are going to be similar to that. San Diego State is now 24-0, and they have, I think, 4 quad 1 wins. But right now, what's going to be interesting is what is the committee going to do if those 2 teams run the table, San Diego State and Gonzaga, from here on out? Because San Diego State, in the first projections that came out recently, San Diego State was the 1 seed on the East, so they were in just a really tough little quarter bracket.
Well, and then, of course, they'll put them with Duke because they always take care of Duke.
Exactly.
And people get mad that we say that, but it's just the truth.
It's true. The
committee takes care of Duke every single year, and it drives everybody else insane. And they have no business being the 2 in the East and then putting San Diego State as the 1. But playing devil's advocate, nobody's mentioned the fact that San Diego State's 6'11", shot blocker extraordinaire, big-time center with a pick-and-roll offense is out. And we don't know if he's coming back. He's got that breathing issue. He ain't played in 8 games. If he doesn't come back, I'm not sure you can just ignore that.
Yeah.
But so far, it looks like the committee and all these prognosticators just act like, oh, there's no injuries, everything's great. They don't even mention it on TV. And I'm like, it's a whole different team when you watch them. They don't have the guy that they can just pick and roll, throw it to, and dunk it. They don't have the guy that they can go out and pressure the perimeter like crazy, let him turn the corner, and he's going to swat it anyway. That's a big difference when you take him away. And I just don't understand why nobody's talking about it. But I don't know if he's coming back. I keep trying to read, and I don't think the coaches know if he's coming back. It's some kind of breathing issue is all I keep reading about. So I don't know what that could mean. I guess could be asthma that's not under control or something, but some kind of respiratory problem is what I keep hearing. So I don't know.
They need to be at full strength. They're not deep enough or good enough to be able to win without some of their best, especially against having to do it 3 or 4 games in a row against top tier teams. Their first couple games probably won't be anything to really think twice about. But when we look at the way the rankings are right now, which kind of makes it fun, in the top 16 projected seeds right now from 9 different conferences. So things are really spread out. I mean, it really, like, you go down. We just mentioned Baylor, Kansas, and then you have Gonzaga, San Diego State, you have Louisville, Dayton, Duke, Florida State, Maryland, and then rounding out the top 10. How good is this Seton Hall team?
Well,
Dan?
I was going to tell you that the 3 teams that I look at that can go to the Final Four that not a lot of people talk about is Seton Hall for sure, Kentucky for sure, and Oregon for sure. And the reason Seton Hall can go there is Powell. I mean, he is incredible. He is the perfect college guard because he was never big enough, strong enough, lanky enough to leave. The NBA kept saying, well, he's 6'2", might be 6'3". He's kind of got that bad body. He's a little thick. He's not overly athletic, So they keep telling him, you got to come back. Well, so what you end up with is a 2,000-point scorer that can flat out get it done, and he just gets it done every night. And then they got the big kid in the middle that blocks every shot. I mean, if you come in the middle, he's going to swat it. So teams can't score on him. So you're not going to get more than 60 to 65 points on Seton Hall. So you better pray that Powell has an off night and a big lefty's back that was out for about 15 games. I think he had something wrong with his nose or so. I can't remember what it was. No, it was his wrist. I think he broke his wrist. Well, he's back. He's their second best player, the foreign kid. He's a really good 6'9", lefty that can shoot, can go in and out, can rebound. I mean, they've got it all to go to the Final Four, and then Kentucky, I know they don't shoot it that well, but they got some really good players, and the big kid underneath is scoring now. What's his name? I always forget his name. The big kid that he was going to go in the draft after freshman year, and then he couldn't, and he came back, and Nick Richards, and he just keeps getting better. And now you've got a 6'11" kid with all this experience underneath, and then you've got all these McDonald's All-Americans on the perimeter. And, they've got everything to make a run. And they got Higgins is a good point guard. And, people just keep ignoring them, because they got 5 losses. But if they get the right draw, they can make a run. And then Oregon, if they play like they did against UCLA and Pritchard and Durante make shots, my Lord.
They can beat anybody. Yeah.
Because those 2 guys, that kid, both of them kids can play in the NBA. You got NBA level talent on the perimeter. If they always say the cream rises to the crop in the tournament, and those NBA players start playing like NBA players, that's when teams advance. And Oregon's probably going to be maybe a 5 seed or so in the tournament. I wouldn't, if I was a 1, I sure wouldn't want to be staring at Oregon. Like if I was Gonzaga and I'm the 1 and I look in the Sweet 16 and I'm playing Oregon,
yeah,
I wouldn't want that matchup. I'd be
No.
like, oh boy, no thanks on that one. So those are the teams that I and then there's a sleeper that nobody talks about, and I know the American Conference is really, really down this year at the top, but Houston is one of those teams that went to the Sweet 16 last year. They had the game won. They screwed it up, and then they got cheated at the end against Kentucky. Most of those players, I know they lost their top scorer, but they got like 7 guys that all played in that, and I think they're like 19-5 now
Yeah, they're 7-1 in their last 8, and that only loss was at Cincinnati.
Yeah, and they were led by 15, and they started doing some goofy stuff. Then the kid bit somebody, and I mean, it just ended crazy. And they were still in it all. I mean, they've got guys that are all 6'5" to 6'8" or 9, and they play so hard and tough. It is crazy. I mean, they beat you up. So if the refs let somebody play in the second round, if they get to the second round and they let them play, they're going to be a tough out. As probably a 6 or 7 seed. I mean, if they would play a team like Maryland in the second round, I could see them beating Maryland. I don't think Maryland's that good. The teams that I think are overrated are Maryland. Auburn's not that good. Penn State's not that good. West Virginia's not that good. Villanova's not that good. I mean, they're all okay, but they're not teams that I would be afraid of if I was in the second round or in the Sweet 16. They're just another team. None of them have, those kind of players that you're like, well, if he comes to play, we're dead. Where Seton Hall's got Powell. And if Powell comes to play, you're in trouble. Louisville's got Nwamba. If he comes to play, you're in trouble. Gonzaga's got Tilly and the rest of them that are all really, really good players, and Baylor's got about 5 of them. So, there's teams I'd be afraid of, and then there's teams that, wouldn't bother me to play them. And that's why this tournament's going to be so wild. There's just so many teams. And the other thing we haven't talked about, Gino, is the line moving back. I mean, it has caused some crazy results because there's teams that get hot from that line and it changes everything. And then there's also a lot of nights that you look up and teams are 3 for 25.
Just awful. Just shooting themselves out of games.
Right. And now in the tournament, you're playing in these big domes. Not all these teams play in big domes all the time. So now they go into these big domes in the first round, the second round with the heat of the NCAA tournament, and that line's another foot back.
You start missing your first 3 or 4, then you start scrubbing a little bit. You start, you're thinking about it, and then that's a good point too. We're seeing teams that are just literally shooting themselves out of games where you're like, wow, they just stuck to the 3-pointer. They didn't want to take that long jump shot because it's not the best analytical shot. But you know what? Sometimes you just got to do it. And I'm pumped. This is fun. And we're recording this on Wednesday afternoon before the Wednesday night games. And this is actually a pretty interesting week. I mean, just on Wednesday, we have Creighton at Seton Hall, Xavier at Butler, Kansas at West Virginia, a rivalry game in Bama, Auburn. We have Marquette, Villanova. So, I mean, you're going to see some things happen already on Wednesday. Thursday, we have a couple really good Pac-12 teams going at it in Colorado and Oregon. That's going to have some impact in the conference. So this is a big week as far as, things changing. A lot can happen this week, and hopefully we'll continue to talk a few more times between now and the tournament, because I just after those top few teams, this just seems like everybody else is the same, right? Yeah. It's like this is a year where anyone could beat anybody.
Yeah. It's who's going to get hot. Who makes 10 threes against you? They come out and make 3 threes, you can beat them. They come out and make 10 threes, and you're in deep trouble. And that's how close all these teams are. And the one team we haven't mentioned yet that I know all the big boys are praying they don't see in the first round, and that's Northern Iowa. Yeah, Northern Iowa can flat out play, and they can make threes. And you get them in the first round, and they make 10 or 12 threes against you as a 12 seed or 11 seed. Good luck. Good luck.
So let's make a transition now. We'll move from college basketball on over to some horse racing, because I've seen you on the Turfway Park feed a couple times handicapping. You gave out a bomb, I think about a week or two ago. You gave out this, I think the horse was like 50-1 or something like that.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, look at Dan over there. You looking good. You sounding good. So and I know Turfway is like one of your home away from home, so I figured we're going to talk some college basketball. We might as well take a look at one of the Turfway cards, and there are a couple decent little stakes on Friday night, which is Valentine's Day, so nothing better than sitting there with your loved one playing some races, trying to make some money. Let's talk about those two Turfway Park Stakes races on Friday. So we're looking first at the 5th race on Friday. It's the John Battaglia Memorial, and this was a fun race, Dan. I mean, you can make cases for like 6-7 different horses in here. Who are some of the ones that you want to start with?
Well, and the thing is about the fifth race at Turfway, because there's only 8 races, you're finishing the pick 5, but you're also starting the pick 4.
That middle race, you have to hit it.
Yeah, you cannot be. We preach this every week. You cannot be wrong in the 5th race, even if you go a little deeper than you might want to.
Mm-hmm.
You just can't let yourself get knocked out of 2 bets at the same time. And the first horse I come to in this race is the 7, Tama Toto, for Mike Maker, Corrales. Corrales is an unknown rider that was riding up at Thistle Downs, and almost nobody at Turfway even knew who he was. In the first part of the meet, man, he just kept riding winner after winner after winner. Wesley Ward, Mike Maker, they all fell in love with him, started riding him. I mean, he can really, really ride and gives an honest effort every time. And so I looked up this race that this horse came out of that he ran second in, and this was a really good race.
It was.
I mean, yeah, that horse that had run second in the Breeders' Cup was in this race and ran out of the money.
Yep, Chimney Rock, who was your Grade 2 Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf Sprint runner-up. And that third-place finisher is a stakes winner, Pixelate. That's a nice one, too. That was a good group. I've been playing a lot of Sam Houston this year. I love it because the takeout is low, and they have a really good grass racing, and you get 12% if you're someone who likes to play those, doubles, 12%, pick 3s, 12%, pick 4s, and pick 5s, all 12%. That was a good race. He was just a couple lengths off. He really just couldn't. And when you look at the effort coming closing, he was 4th. He kind of just waited patiently. He moved like 3 deep at the top of the lane, and he briefly took the lead. But the horse from behind just came storming. It was just one of those trips where if he would have been asked to move a little bit later, he probably would have even been a little bit closer. And so the distance is no problem. His first 2 races weren't bad either, Dan.
Yeah, I love second route horses too. That's one of my things, one of the angles I look for in young horses. And I love the fact that number went straight up through the roof at 80 number right away. Boom, boom. Soon as they route him, boom. And 13-1 tells me how tough that field was. Yeah. And the 7 holes fine. He's going to be close to the pace. We may not want him too close because there is a ton of speed in here. Yep. When you go up and down this chart, the 2 is going to run well early, the 4 is going to run early, the 5 is going to run early, the 6 is going to run early, the 8's going to run early, the 10, my man Flintstone, who's a really nice horse for Kenny McPeak, came to Turfway and aired him, but then went down to Tampa, didn't run at all, but that wasn't the poly. So if my man Flintstone can somehow get to the front, he's going to be dangerous. So this is a tough race. Now I went to the 7, and then my 2 savers in here are going to be the 5 High Holy for Darren Miller, only because the horse has not been a route yet, ran off the chart in his last race. And I know that was only an optional 50. It wasn't a stake race or anything. But, man, he ran a 91.
He could be any kind.
Yeah.
He's one of those that he could be just a synthetic freak.
Yeah.
A horse who just loves this track. Yep.
2 for 2 at Turfway. What if he breaks 2 in front of 5 speed horses that are all just going to back up?
Because they're just chasing, and they're not going to sit and close. And then what ends up happening, you put so much distance on the deep closers, and you make them try to do so much work just to keep up with you that you're just gone. Right. So, yeah, I think of all the speed horses in here, that would definitely be the one I use. And I think for me, the only other horse would maybe be the other maker, Artemis Eagle, who if they go really quick, maybe he can sit a little bit. Because I like the way he sat last time out. He actually had – it was kind of an easy win. He was geared down late. And so maybe Maker will have his 2 kind of sitting off the pace a little bit. But I think we got to start with the other Maker. I think Tama Toto for sure coming out of that race just from a class standpoint. And he's run well at Turfway. And that December 19th race, he probably needed that race too. He hadn't run since May. So, yeah, I feel like we've sniffed out some of them. Anyone else in here you want to mention? Like the 1, Hail to the Chief from the rail. Obviously, it's Wesley Ward and maybe a horse who can pick up some pieces late if they do go fast. But I prefer
maybe Cox's horse, the 9, Shake Some Action, would have a chance. Yeah. But coming from a maiden race to a stake race is so tough. But that's one that the fairgrounds horses, they do usually come up here and do well. So, and you get Corey Lannery to ride. Maybe the Cox horse, but I think that horse might get over bet. So that's not one that I'd really want on my ticket. And unless I was just spreading out like crazy. And the way I'm going to play the late pick 4 is I'm going to single Tama Toto in the 5th, but then I'm going to flip it and make a second ticket and in the next stake race, single the Wesley Ward in the next that we're getting ready to talk about here.
Yeah, let's go to the 7th race, and that's going to be the Cincinnati Trophy, 6.5 furlongs the distance. So there are a couple Wesley Wards in here, but I would imagine you going to Anna's Fast.
No, I'm actually going to the other one.
Like it. That's even better. That's even better. I like it. Great. Okay, tell us why you like Karak.
Well, I think Karak they started him at Belmont, thought enough of her to take her over to Ascot. So that tells me he thinks a lot of this filly, right? Brings her back into Tyro and she airs them. Then she ran into Matron against Almas, who's just a freak. I mean, that horse is just a freak. Then came back, ran an okay race against Fly So Pretty, who's another one that's pretty good. So I'm not sure there's anything in here that's better than the two horses that just beat her. Then they lay her up a little bit. All right, so now let's try the Poly. Well, Caracante started out very well as a sire, and these horses out of Caracante are running decent on the Poly. We've already seen a couple winners here at Turfway out of Caracante. So you get Corrales, you get the good 10 hole to where this filly's going to probably break a length or two off the speed on the dead outside where you want to be at Turfway, and she's going to have every chance in the world to run on in the lane. Now, maybe she can't get the 6.5. We'll find out. But
trip though, I love the trip she seems like she's going to get, right?
Yeah, she trips out so good, and I think she'll probably be stalking her stablemate Anna's Fast, who's probably going to make it to lead. And it looks like on this chart, and I'll invite anybody to go back and watch this replay, because on the chart it looks like she won really, really easy. But when you watch the replay and they turn for home, I guarantee you're all going to be like, man, did she get beat? What happened?
Yeah.
Because when she turns for home, she looks like she might be in trouble. And then all of a sudden, her class showed, and she grinded away from them a little bit. But she really didn't beat a ton. I mean, the horse she beat there, the 11, Secretly Wicked's 20-1 in the race. I don't know. I mean, as a flyer, I could see taking her as a flyer. I'd rather take, the horses just below, at 20-1 and maybe trifectas with the 10, and then take like the 9 and 11 to try to storm home for third. And then, maybe 10 all with 9-11 and 10, 9-11 with all. Cause I think Karak is going to be 1-2. I just don't see how, unless she just really, really stops. I just think she trips out perfect. But I think the 9 coming back quick, but if the 9 really does run off a week's rest, and you never know if they'll scratch out, but turning back should be the perfect distance if she's good enough. Now, I don't think she can win, but to get in the trifecta, she's going to be every bit of 25 to 30-1, and she's got that great outside post to just drop back, swoop 3 or 4 wide, and try to come on. And that 6.5 should be perfect as the other ones are stopping. She could pick up the pieces because, other than the two Wards, I just don't think I wouldn't take anybody else on the win end. If I was betting pick 4s or pick 3s or doubles, I just take the two Wards and lean more towards the 10.
Yeah, the only one that I could make a case for, I'm kind of with you, and I prefer the 10 of the two Wards, is because I'm looking at the way this race could shape up too. I think you're going to get the speed from Rising Seas. You're going to get some speed from Ballast and Lassie, at least. You're probably going to get a little speed from Miss Firecracker. And is that going to kind of put Anna's Fast in a tough spot where she's maybe going a little too quick early on, and it sets up nicely for Karak? I think the only other one for me would be the 2, KBG. I just thought that the Churchill win was pretty impressive, and I like the fact that she can show some speed, but she can pass horses like we saw last time out if they're going a little too quick. So there are some options, but I do feel like Ward, to me, when I was kind of handicapping the 2 races, it felt like the 5th race is going to go through Maker, and the 7th race is going to go through Ward. Or it's just like,
isn't that ironic?
It is, right?
Of course it's going to be, right? I mean, it figures to be. But you're right on the 2. I mean, the 2. Now, if Johnny goes too soon, then
that's the problem.
I hope he's got to drop back.
Exactly. Just try to do that trip that you had last time out, and that, it ends up happening sometimes where it's like a blessing in disguise. You break slowly, or you have a poor start, you get squeezed back, and then you realize, oh, you know what? This filly can pass horses. Like, you might be better off kind of taking her back and sitting. Maybe she relaxes a little bit more that way. So I like that they have some options there with her, but I don't know if she's quite as good as either of the two Wards. But I feel like if you're gonna go with the Wards, let's go with Karak, who probably gets the better of the trips in here.
Yeah, and I think they're going to bet the 3 Rising Seas of Ben Colbrooks with Lannery, and that's the kind of horse that just doesn't win at Turfway. If this horse wins, I will be shocked because she's on the inside. She has to go wire to wire. She's not going to get off the fence. She's going to be stuck in there the whole way around, and I just don't know how going 6.5 she can go all the way, hold off all that speed, hold off all the closers, and be on the worst part of the racetrack. I mean, and be probably 3-1 because people see all those ones on the chart, they're going to bet on her. So to me, that's a complete just leave out, hope to try to beat, take those outside horses. I'm going to take the 10, save a little with the 7 and the pick 4. And then in the tries, I'm going to take the 10 with the 9-11, hit the all button third, put the 9-11 third, put the all button second, and I'm hoping that I catch one of them 30-1s third and blow this thing up and get a $400 or $500 trifecta because it could pay if we can get the 3 out of the money.
Sure.
And if Anna Fast would stop, all that's left is prices. They're all going to be prices. So this is that typical Turfway race. That you look up and say, wow, how'd that 50-1 run second? That's impossible. But this is what happens here. They storm home the middle of the track, get that lazy second or third place finish when everybody else is staggering, and it could definitely happen in this stake race. But Karak, if I could do the New Jersey thing, Gino, and lock in 7-2.
Oh, we would take it, right?
I would do that. I would do this. I would take probably about $200. Bet 200 to win on Karak, and then parlay it all back on this Pletcher so-called freak on Saturday that I've had 30 people call me on already. that this Liam's Map first-time starter that runs on Saturday. I don't even know the name of the horse. They just said Pletcher, Liam's Map, freak, worked 48, didn't even blow out a match after the work, was looking around for competition in the lane. I'm like, oh boy, here we go again. Another one. I mean, I almost dread those phone calls because probably going to be 4-1 morning line. First flash is going to be 2-5, and there goes your bet.
And you're just wondering, and then you're sitting there hoping, you're screaming for the 2-5 shot. All your money is tied up in this 2-5. And you're just hoping, don't get in trouble, don't get stuck, don't have something happen here. And
so many times.
I mean, I like the. So let's see. That is, who is that? Couldn't give off 66. So is that on? So this is on Saturday, the firster.
Yeah,
the Pletcher.
Saturday at Gulfstream. I'm being told. I don't even know what race. I don't know.
We'll look it up.
I just know the sire is Liam's Map.
Okay, we'll follow along.
Pletcher firster.
We'll follow along with you on Twitter at Fat Bald Guy Racing, which is great too. I love you on Twitter, Dan. You're fun. You have a good time interacting with people. You'll talk basketball. You'll talk whatever you're watching. If you're watching the Super Bowl, you're going to talk about it. You're going to talk about basketball. You're going to talk about the races. You'll have fun back and forth with people. You don't take yourself too seriously. You just have a good time. And I think the biggest accomplishment that you've had in the last few years, you're now a Beamy Award winner, right? A 2-time winner? Is that correct? Can
you believe that? 2-time winner. I'm
wow.
in shock. I'm in shock. I was like, man, he must really like me.
That is great. So let the folks out there know anything else. What are you working on? You have, fatbaldguyracing.com, all sorts of packages covering all sorts of different tracks, like each and every day. Give the plug for your stuff out there.
Yeah, fatballguyracing.com, or if you like just the mobile stuff, we got fbgmobile.com. You can go on, you can buy the daily packages if you don't want to have a commitment. We've got Road to the Derby packages if you want to just try it from here through the Derby. We got Triple Crown. We got the whole year stuff. And we always tell everybody, don't let money stop you. If you look at the prices and go, well, I'm only a Saturday player, just email me. We work it out with people all the time, especially a lot of small players that only play on Saturdays. We're not trying to gouge people.
Yeah, you're trying to help.
That's why our prices are. I mean, we're in the $30 a month. I hate it when people buy one-day picks.
It's just enough to keep people to pay for the work. You know what I mean? It's just for people's time and for the website and for the stuff to put it up. It's just, that's all it is. It's something that you enjoy. and you like to share it with everyone.
Right, and we share every piece of information. I've had people several times tell me, I don't know why you don't hold those first-time starters for yourself, and I'm like, no, that's what our business is about. I want to help all the guys. Hey, I know we got a couple guys that bet absolutely astronomical money, but for the majority of the people, we got guys betting 5s and 10s. I mean, they need to know the information, and it doesn't always work out, but I can't tell you how many times we had a Dale Romans horse the other day that was like 15-1 that got beat by a neck that nobody in the industry knew about that horse. But Dale called my buddy, said, I'm telling you now, this horse can really run. So we just put it on the sheet. Hey, I know Romans likes a lot of his horses, but he's telling us that this horse can run. You might want to put him in somewhere. And if you had to exact it with the favorite, how else are you going to get that? You're just not going to get it. And we don't hide anything. It's whatever I hear, I put it on the sheet and let you make your own decision. If you want to bet on the Pletchers and we know about them, we're going to tell you. If you want to bet against them, I actually had a guy come up to me at Turfway the other night, and it was funny. He said, I get your stuff. And I said, oh, okay, thanks. He goes, just to fade you. and I just started laughing. I said, what do you mean? He goes, well, especially at the Kentucky tracks, I want to know who you're putting out, because that way I can try to find a different horse in the race, because I might get some value because your horse is going to get hammered.
It's true. No, yeah, you're laughing. You're going,
well, okay. I was like, well, I understand. That's a good angle.
Exactly. Hey, if it works for you, you're just happy to help, and it makes you laugh. And yeah, that's what's great. We've always got along really well from day one when we talked a lot on Elite Racing Network, and every time when we talk, I'm always thinking, man, it's been too long. So with the time of the year it is right now, with these Derby preps coming up every week, and with college basketball, I'd love to do something with you, the next couple weeks, where we get you on every other week or as often as you can, and we can talk about what just happened that week and who's hot and who's not in college, and then we can talk about some of the Derby horses and how they're moving up and down that Kentucky Derby list, because you've got some come Derby time, you've got some great information too. You always point out and you always share with people all about the information and the research you've done about the speed figures with the buyers and the Brisnet figures, and you always have some real good stuff that's very well researched. So always appreciate the work you do, Dan, and I always enjoy talking to you. So let's try to touch base again in the next week or two and bring you on, and we'll see what happened in college this last week.
Sounds good. Thanks, my man. I'll talk to you soon.
Okay, that is Dan Cronin. You know him as Keeneland Dan, Fat Bald Guy Racing, but Skinny Bald Guy Racing now. So we'll see you soon, Dan. Thanks.
See ya. Bye-bye.
A big thank you to buddy Keeneland Dan there. And, we'll bring him on a few times between now and the tournament so we can discuss college basketball. Hopefully a couple other guests we'll try to bring on. So, now with football out of the equation, We'll be mixing it up a lot more even than we normally do here, and we're gonna find a good show or two that we can get back to doing some weekly recaps of also, which I always like doing. I'm watching too many shows right now, and I think to be able to fully recap all of them would be overwhelming. So let's get over to Sam Houston. Let's discuss the Sam Houston card. Get your past performances out. We're going to talk Sam Houston Friday, February the 14th.
Horse racing fans and bettors of all kinds, we are very excited to be covering the races from Sam Houston Race Park here on That's What G Said on each and every episode. They're broadcasting in HD. They have bigger purses, turf racing over there. But for me, the key is that 12% low takeout on their multi-leg wagers. Doubles, pick threes, pick fours, pick fives. They are building a great program over there. It truly is major league racing. We have to give a big applause to the TTA, the Texas Thoroughbred Association. They've added new incentives and bonus programs for buying and selling horses, so it's better for the customers and it's better for the horsemen in Texas. Their social media presence has been bumped up. You can follow them at SHRP Racing on Twitter, and you're going to find morning training videos, the Monday Minute, jockey interviews, or if you're not on Twitter, you can find all the information at shrp.com. They're just working so hard to treat their horsemen and women and the bettors right, so let's give them a little bit of our focus. A couple big days coming up. February the 22nd is Texas Preview Day, And the big day, March the 21st, that is Texas Champions Day. We'll be covering all of that action here on That's What G Said, with all sorts of different interviews focusing in on Sam Houston. Make sure when you go to play the races, give Sam Houston a look with that ultra-low 12% takeout in the multi-leg wagers.
Okay, so we'll give you some thoughts on the early and the late pick fours. Or we'll do early pick 4 and late pick 5, and then you can kind of break things down. You can kind of see how we stack everybody up. In the first race, though, just from maybe an individual standpoint, I think the 8 Heart Attack, pretty interesting in here. We have a horse here who really needed his last race, right? He was off from July of 2018 to September of 2019. Then another 4.5 month break. And now he got the return out of the way. Now he drops. He returns to the dirt. I think Heart Attack is worthy of inclusion in exotics and maybe playing a few bucks on to win. The way I stacked this race up, exotics-wise, I had 8, 5, 4, 1, 9. As a daddy, obviously going to be very, very logical and tough in here. I thought Frankly Fun showed some speed last out, but he proved that he can kind of pass horses a few starts back. And, Chief Envoy, another one to include. So, underneath the exotics, but I did think a Heart Attack was the way to go in here. In race number 2, the 8 Mighty Merle is where I would start. He loomed up. He was a clear-cut second last out, and it was a big gallop out, going 5 on the turf. And he's just really never run a bad race. He's ultra consistent. He's got a little bit of speed, but at this 5 furlong trip, he's not going to be on the lead in here. He's not as quick as some others. He has enough speed to kind of maybe to put himself in a decent position, and that's the only concern. Can one of these outrun him in here? Maybe a horse like Beta Lake, who has legit sprint speed. That's the deuce in here. The 7 D Rocket Man should really sit the trip, and if you just key off the grass races for him, he could be really, really tough in here. So that I had a 8, 7, 2. And if you want to go a little bit deeper, the 4 Cowboy Breeze is kind of interesting. There are a couple races in for a tag back at Lone Star last year that were good enough to win this race. And now he's another one who he recently got his first start of 2018 out of the way. A lot of times you get some fitness out of that. He could take a little step forward. So if you want to use another one in some of the exotics, depending on how you shape your tickets, we'd probably play one ticket where we would go 2, 4, 7, and 8, and maybe one where we are just using the 8 or maybe 7 and 8. But I have 8, 7, 2, 4 there in race number 2. The third race won't even spend a whole ton of time on this, and I can't even recall, which is actually good, because the handicapping, especially for Sam Houston lately, has been pretty solid, and we've had a good last week or so. This race, I have no idea, absolutely no clue what to do in race number 3. 5 furlongs, 15 on 2. I mean, the 4 is going to be the horse to beat. I just think it could be anybody, and I'm just gonna buy the race. I'm just gonna play all in the exotics and move along. I'd much rather do that every now and then in a race that I'm uncomfortable with, and then key on a horse or in one of the races around that I like. A lot of the times I have a strong opinion. That race, absolutely do not. Let's go to the 4th race there. And this one, unfortunately, the opinion that I have is one that I don't like. I just feel like Insurrection is going to be very, very tough in here. And that's the 8 horse who's dropping in class, who adds the blinks, hoping to maybe just sit a little bit closer. And it just really looks like he towers over this field after running some competitive races against better. He's going to be really, really tough in here. Insurrection. You're going to go a little deeper. I thought the 3 Cliche Ridge, who is a horse who's going to be close to the front end and could have the opportunity to steal this race. The key is, can he clear the fresh horse we haven't seen in not a couple years, but a year and a half now, Pleasant Moon, who hasn't raced since August 24th of 2018. Maybe a horse that can, take this field a long way. And then Mr. Strange, who I don't love. I'd have this race 8-3-2. Very chalky, very obvious. So that's why we kind of can spread out a little bit, because I think this is the race that looks pretty formful. In race number 5, I like a horse in here. Pretty decent amount. This will be one of my better plays of the day, depending on the price that we can get. And that's the number 9, Whatever Comes, whose debut, she was a little bit slow in her first step, and then she moved through up to 4th, 5th. She was 4 deep and in between horses, and then she was in tight. She had to take up, she had to take back, she lost momentum, and she came on again. She angled out 4 wide, just no late punch after being wide. And now the drop, now second out improvement likely, was beaten by a horse who just came back to win at Fairgrounds against 15 Claimers. I think the 9 takes a nice step forward in here, not hooking any monsters. The 8 horse headlining, she had a slow start from the rail. She recovered well. She moved through without really being asked. She sat a couple lengths off. She moved up to the lead, but then she fades a little bit late. That was over at Turfway on the synthetic. It was headlining. And then the 1 Alicia's Valentine on Valentine's Day, right? Hunch play of a lifetime. Speed. She's going to be tough in here. She broke well. She was right up on the lead. She was 3 deep. She's able to clear off by a length. She ran a winning race. She was well clear of 3rd. She was finished 2nd. She just lost to a better filly. That filly came right back to win and beat 5-2 next out. And that filly had trouble and kind of backed up. The winner was much the best, and Alicia's Valentine was second best. And just a repeat of that effort will make her really tough in here. So I have 9, 8, 1. If we can get like 5-1 on Whatever Comes, worth putting a few bucks on for a barn who's really, really good second time out. So here are some versions of the early pick 4 that I'm thinking of. I have a couple tickets down here that I'm possibly playing. I generally play, a couple different versions. So one would single the 8 in race number 2, and then go all, and then go 2, 3, 8, and then 1, 8, 9. The next one would start in race number 2 with the 2, 4, 7, and 8, with all in the 3rd, with 8 singled in the 4th, with 1, 8, 9. And then, even smaller ones, you could do something like 7, 8 with all, with 8, with 1, 8, 9. Just a couple of different combinations. I'll look around, see if there's any scratches, changes, anything like that. But those look like a couple different versions of tickets I may play there in the early pick 4s. As we move on to race number 6. And this one will start the late pick 5. And 25 and on 2 claimers, mile and 16th on the turf course. I like the 6 a little bit in here. The most recent start was, when you look at it paper and but easy excuse, right? Off racetrack. Just put a line right through it. Let's look at the turf race. It was actually sneaky good. Kind of against the Oklahoma bred allowance company. Not a bad fourth. Blinks on. Stretching back out. Trying to sit a little bit closer. I thought inclusively. Very sneaky. And we're going to be including in all of our exotics here. And if you can get, half of what he is on the morning line, 8 to 1 or so, worthy of a few bucks on the win end, throw him in all of your exotics. I think the 1 Schnitzel we're going to include. He most recently, on January the 11th, was 4th. He was 3 off. He was in the 3rd flight. And then he got caught inside. He had to wait behind horses, and he had to look for room. He moved inside, but it was just too late. And the winner had slipped away. But this guy won the battle for 2nd that day. And he was pretty good. That effort, again, puts him right here. The 4 is going to be really well spotted today when the penny drops. Just coming out of much better. Those Lone Star races, repeat of really either of those makes him tough. The issue that I have and why he's, to me, not in just an absolute standout in here, I'm not a big fan of the layoffs after the layoffs. If you notice in a lot of my handicapping, I love most of the time, some barns are really good getting a horse off the bench to come off of a layoff, but I don't like a layoff off of a layoff, which, you come back, you have a race off of a couple months, and then you're off again for a little while. It's just not something I love. So we'll see when the penny drops, maybe needs a race, not a whole lot of speed, probably coming from out of it. If you're looking for other under horses, so I have 6-1-4 in that order. And then if you're looking for the unders, maybe 7 Silent Force, who could be the one to catch. And the 10, Don't Let Me Linger, who had a 4-wide bid at the top of the lane, tried really hard. He just missed 2nd. Behind the 1, Schnitzel. So kind of 6-1 as the top, with 4, 7, 10 as the next tier. Let's go to race number 7. This was a late pick 4. Starting in the 7th race, let's go to the 6-horse Smart Box, right? This 6-year-old mare, she looks like the one to catch. There's not a whole ton of speed in here. I think she has a huge opportunity stretching out from some of these quick 5 furlong races. Now, I don't know if this is going to be her best trip and if she's going to be able to really go this far, but there's 1 or 2 others who might have a little bit of speed. We're not sure how the horse that has the last race at Assiniboia Downs, if the speed, how that pace will translate over here. But I think Smart Box on the lead. The obvious one to beat in here is True Confession. She's going to be really tough. She's just coming out of much, much better races. And then I thought the 3, Top Snap, kind of a wild card who fits the conditions of this race well. These are the 5,000 non-winners of a race since August the 14th. Last we saw a Top Snap win was on August the 10th. 6-9-3. How I have this 7th race pegged with the 9 on the real one to beat. 6 maybe the one to play if you can get a price on a horse who could get a little loose on the lead. 8th race. This one feels like the 2-5 on the morning line. Ooh, don't see the 2 to 5 on the morning line all too often, right? Young Phillip really seems to tower over this field. And comes in from Churchill, runner-up 3 of the last 4 times, and overall in the money 6 of 8. And he's faced a lot better. And there's just not a whole lot else in this field to really get too excited about. You could, I think, as far as underneath, you can make some cases for some. I thought Mine Boss was a horse who I liked in his last spot, and he really just never got a shot because he broke poorly, which you just don't like. You never like right off the bat. You're in some trouble. The 3 Valiant Appeals, a first-time gelding who has a couple of okay races. The lower race in February of last year wasn't bad. We just haven't seen him in a year now, almost. It's going on. It's 11 months now. Last race in March, and I think the 8 Omega is a first-time starter. He hasn't done a whole lot wrong. He has a couple nice works. Maybe he has some ability, but at 6.5 furlongs, that's not an easy distance to debut at. Whereas you have young Phillip, who has so much bottom, who's cutting back from 7 furlongs last time out. The 5, What Thinking, another under horse. You can make an excuse for the grass race and play off the races prior to that. Although those were against Oklahoma breds, and this race is against Open Company. So, I mean, exotics and some of the late exotics, you got to probably play one ticket at least where you're just singling young Phillip. Although he's such a heavy favorite, it maybe wouldn't be bad to play another ticket where you use a couple others and maybe single in on one of the other races around it. Because if he does get beat, this could pay pretty well. Anyone else in this race will be a nice price. So, just kind of depends on who and how you approach the races around. 9th race, Sammy Houston. We're gonna look at the 8 horse, Wicked Valentine. These are they're going a mile on the turf course here, maiden 50s. If you go back and look at the January 1st race, and that was over at Fairgrounds, she was tucked inside nicely. She was 3rd, and she was just in behind. She had nowhere to go. She was traveling well. She was rating for room. She tried to go in between horses, but she just couldn't hit the hole, and she got steadied. It was a really nice effort, though, and that was at Fairgrounds. Just overall, her grass form is so much better than everybody else's in here. The debut race at Arlington, even the race against maiden special weights, second time out, you're like in the mix, you're showing some speed. Then you go, the January race, you have legitimate trouble. Tried to get on the grass again last time out, couldn't. An excuse there. I think Wicked Valentine is very, very live in here, and we will make Wicked Valentine our top selection. If we can get anything over 7-2 or even worthy of a win wager here. The 3 E-Ticket Ride, the dam won twice on the grass. 2 siblings that have raced, both won on the grass. I'm expecting this one to take a nice step forward on the green. That's the 3 E-Ticket Ride. The 2 Bell Strike, stretching out, trying the grass for the first time, dropping in class, coming out of a productive race. They're just, lots of positives for top-notch connections. And then the 9. At Special Treasure, who probably is the quickest in here, and you're going to be stretching out. This one has legit sprint speed, and will now try to go the mile. Who knows if she can get it, but this is the type of horse who you at least want to have in some of the under exotics, because if she does get out and get brave, maybe she can hang on for a slice or even get a chance to steal this race. So maybe on some tickets you throw in the 9 Special Treasure. And let's go to the 10th and final from Sam Houston. 15 claimers, non-winners are 2, 5.5 furlongs the distance. We will go to the 7 to start with. They take the blinkers off this filly, and they're really just trying to figure out where she fits. She debuted at Keeneland. You could tell they always thought pretty highly of her, and she didn't show much that day. Then she wins at Indy. They try the grass a couple times against much better. They go to the bench for a while. She races on January the 26th. It's her first start since the end of August. She, again, is facing tougher. The horse who was the runner-up that day, She Sparkles, was the 2-year-old Texas filly champ from last year. So that's a good race she's coming out of. And she was 4 deep. She's pressing in second. She's getting to within just a couple lengths before she's all in early. The race wasn't bad. It was the first start off the bench, in a while. She should improve. She should take a step forward in here, and she drops in class. They're just looking for, where she fits, and I wouldn't be shocked to see her jump up and pop a big race in here. So I'm going to use her in all of the exotics. No doubt the horse to beat is the 4, Contendress. She really could have won her last race. She got squeezed back, and she lost momentum. She lost a few lengths. She angled around, and she came on again for second. It was a good effort after the trouble. So she's not a favorite that I'm going to be really trying to take a shot against in here. The 3-horse Top Hat Charmer, one to use, hasn't raced since September, but has faced much better the last couple times that we saw her. And then the 9, Amerdine, who I just kind of will treat Amerdine like a wild card in here. She was a speedy debut winner, going 4.5 back in June, and we didn't see her again till December. I generally don't like playing horses like this, but she just kind of feels like maybe a wild card to use in a race that you can see I'm kind of trying to take some shots in here with the 7, who I like. And so the 9, at least in some of the unders, because if she has enough speed to kind of get out and get involved and be forwardly placed early on. So 7, 4, 3, 9. In the late pick 5, couple different approaches. If you want to go like deep, maybe you go 1, 4, 6, 7, 10 with in that 6th race with the 3, 6, 9 single to 7 with the 2, 3, 8 with the 4, 7, or you go a little different if you want to back it up and use a couple others and you don't want to single the 7 in that 3rd leg. You can go something like 1, 4, 6 or 1, 6, either one of those. With 6, 9, with 1, 5, 7, 8, with 3, 8, with 3, 4, 7, 9, different combinations like that. I always try to mix a couple in, and for we all have different price ranges, so it doesn't matter how big or how small. Remember, you can play the daily doubles for 12%, the pick 3s for 12%, the pick 4s for 12%, the pick 5s for 12%. We love it over at Sam Houston. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of That's What G Said. We'll be back with the Fairgrounds Risen Star card. That's a doozy. Oh, that's a great card. So we're going to be happy to handicap that one for you. So look for that coming in the next day or so. Have a great one, folks.